All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Macy, and I lead marketing efforts here at Ordermark. This is now our fourth installment of our webinar series dedicated to providing restaurant owners and operators with updated information, helpful tips, and future outlooks as we're all navigating a changed world amongst COVID-19. We've seen an unprecedented change in consumer behavior, putting restaurants and the restaurant industry through one of the most trying times that we've ever faced before. As some states begin to open up and others continue to enforce stay-at-home orders, we want to bring you the most updated information that we possibly can. Today, we're going to be going through some of the changes in technology and payments during COVID-19 and the greater impact on employees and how you can support them through this challenging time. I want to go ahead and welcome our guests. Of course, we have Alex Cantor, who's the great grandson of Cantor's Deli founder, and also he is our Ordermark CEO. Thanks for being here today, Alex.
Thanks for having me again.
We also have Jim Roddy. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the Retail Solutions Provider Association, or the RSPA. He has been active in the retail IT channel since 1998, including 11 years as the president of Business Solutions Magazine, 6 years as an RSPA board member, and so much more. Jim, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Macy. Pleasure to talk with you. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. And we also have Jeremy Julian, who's the COO of Custom Business Solutions, which is the umbrella for CBS North Star, and he's the contributor at the Restaurant Technology Guys, which is a leading restaurant podcast that sits down once a month with other industry experts. Jeremy, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on today.
So I've got a ton of questions, and I just want to go ahead and dive right in here so that we are good on time. We hit our hour mark. There are a couple of different things I wanted to make note of before we dive in here. First, apologies in advance for any technical difficulties that we may experience. Of course, most of us, all of us, I believe, are working from home right now. So if you hear kid noises, dog noises, or we have any lags, apologies in advance for that. And additionally, if you have any questions, we are going to open this up to a completely live Q&A at the very end. So if questions pop up and you want us to go ahead and answer them, there's a chat bar on your right-hand side. You can feel free to ask a question in there and start some conversations with other attendees. You can also click the button at the bottom of your screen that says Ask a Question, and we'll make sure that we go through all of those and hit as many as we possibly can. So let's go ahead and just dive right in here. I do want to start off first by talking about employees. Obviously, this is an incredibly challenging time for restaurant employees. Alex, my first question is for you. What are some of the ways that you've seen restaurant employees impacted by COVID-19?
Thanks, Macy. Yeah, it's been a really challenging time for the employees of these restaurants right now. Obviously, as restaurants have shut down their dining rooms, the only orders coming in right now, for the most part, until a couple weeks from now, are takeout, delivery, and curbside pickup. So we've seen millions of layoffs across the restaurant industry, chains and mom and pops being affected equally. But it's a pretty tragic time in general for the state of what's going on. I know in my own family's restaurant business, Cantor's Deli in LA, we had to lay off over half of the employees, including some that have been a part of the restaurant for 10, 20, 30 years. Because we don't need the wait staff, we don't need the busboys, the back of house kitchen staff to the same level. And I think the really challenging part right now is like even the restaurants that have been fortunate to receive some of the SBA PPP funding, they're looking to rehire back some of these employees, and a lot of the employees are uncomfortable to come back to the workplace right now. It's a very interesting time because there's still a lot of uncertainty, and I know there's a lot of skepticism around the drivers for Postmates and DoorDash, and sometimes there's been some employees that are scared to be in the workplace right now in general, and the unemployment weekly checks are oftentimes equal or even more than what they were getting paid from a minimum wage standpoint. So they're more comfortable staying home, collecting their checks than putting themselves at risk in these environments. So it's been a very difficult time.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Alex. Jim, My next question is for you. With over 35 million Americans currently displaced from work, in what ways have you seen restaurants try to support their staff?
Yeah, there are a lot of ways they're trying to do it. And I guess I'll just touch on a couple of things Alex said already. So tragic, from a health standpoint, also from an economic standpoint, like you just said, I mean, grasp that 35 million Americans out of work, right? You heard numbers in the Great Depression, and this is surpassing the Great Depression. Like, it's almost hard to wrap your brain around that. And this has all happened over a period of weeks, not over a period of quarters or a year. So, but to directly answer your question, my data is through the eyes of RSPA members. So these are the technology solution providers who work with retailers, restaurants, folks like that. And the first thing that that restaurants are doing is they're starting with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And Alex just touched on it, safety. And that's the most important thing. They are scared about their safety. Their job is actually secondary at this point. And so the way that they're protecting safety, there's some high-tech ways of doing it, right? Through online ordering, mobile, curbside, contactless payments, things like that. A member of ours in Chicago visited one of his establishments to go help them out and see how could they help. And they were having folks going to curbside, running back in with a credit card and processing. And he said, let me save this and get you a mobile solution and make sure that you're able to take care of the customer right at the moment there instead of this running back and forth. We've also seen high-tech solutions, like we have a member who does heat mapping, but they have adjusted their technology to be able to track social distancing, right? And so they can alert the store manager or the restaurant manager if folks are hanging out too close to one another. And then we also see low-tech solutions like plexiglass, right? Who would think in the technology world we'd be talking about plexiglass, but that's something else. And then also a solution provider is working with his merchants to make sure to train them on how to clean effectively and how to open up properly and keep their employees safe. So we see restaurants really leaning on outside consultants to give them guidance, whether it's high tech or low tech solutions.
How interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard much about the heat mapping, but that's a really interesting and super technical way to go ahead and support your employees right now. Alex, some restaurants are keeping their doors open, but with very reduced staff. Does this work? Is this something that is sustainable?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the longer that this lasts, the harder it will be to make that sustainable. I think there are some restaurants that were already very far advanced when it comes to understanding their delivery flow and the food prep that was needed for it, the staff that was required during certain hours. And for those that already had a good understanding of their delivery flow, it's a lot easier to, in hyperspeed, make that shift to the skeleton crew that can support it. But for a lot of restaurants, it's a very hard thing to figure out fast. It takes a lot of trial and error and experimentation, and especially for restaurants that have large seating capacities, they have a lot of fixed costs like rent and things that are there no matter what. So you need enough volume to sustain it, and therefore plugging into all of the different revenue streams that are available and relevant to your zip code is more important than ever right now. And I think that there are restaurants who are doing a great job surviving and can stay in this mode for an extended period of time, especially as delivery volume has surged over the last month, in some markets up to 60%. So the good news is more orders are happening on these delivery and takeout apps. But if that was 10% of your total revenue before, and now it's 20 or 30, you're still operating at a massive loss compared to where you're at before. So you got to cut super deep in the rest of the business and be as creative as possible to figure out ways to increase your basket size and introduce family packs and grocery style menus and all of the things that we're seeing restaurants doing today. Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think we lost your video, Macy, but you're still there.
Oh, I'm still here on audio, if you can still hear me. Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing a ton of restaurants turning towards creativity with their delivery, and it's super important. We just did an entire webinar about this. We'll drop a link to that too if you want to catch up on that one. Jeremy, my next question is for you. What are some of the ways in which technology is helping the restaurant industry during COVID? I know that Jim kind of started to hit on this, but what are you seeing?
I think much of what I had prepared for the response I think has been talked about, but I think it goes to Alex's point of third-party delivery. So many people were either, oh yeah, I need to get on that, but they never integrated their third-party delivery or hadn't done anything with it. And so whether it's Ordermark or some of the other aggregators that are helping with this stuff, the amount of volume that's going through the third-party deliveries has been huge. Their own standard online ordering. So many restaurants didn't even offer on their own website online ordering, whether it was for third-party delivery or not. Mobile POS, to Jim's point, the idea of mobile POS and really disconnected mobile payments are probably those four, I would say, are the biggest. And when I say mobile payments, is the idea of being able to take a mobile device to the customer for payment and use NFC technology, Apple Pay, Google Wallet, Samsung Pay at the curbside, at the table, wherever you're engaging with those guests. And even as people are starting to reopen, I foresee that continuing to be a big issue. I get requests almost daily of what options are there out there for tableside payment and tableside ordering. And Jim can tell you, we've been in this for a long time. I've been pitching this for years, and people, I'm not going to get to it. But now with COVID, it's accelerated every one of these things in ways that we could never anticipate.
Super important to look at this and how do we get ahead of whatever next big challenge we might face, and technology is going to be a key component in that. My next question is for you, Jim. We've started to see new customers placing online orders from restaurants who had never previously placed an online order before. Do you think that by placing orders now, this will be something that customers will continue to do in the future, even after restaurants open their dining rooms back up to in-house dining?
Yeah, I'd say absolutely. And I'd say there are two hurdles. Jeremy touched on one. The restaurants were always a hurdle themselves for adopting this, but the consumer was a giant hurdle as well. But, some people say it takes 2 weeks to start a new habit, but it's probably more like 2 months. And a lot of North America has been quarantined for now 2 months, right, in developing that habit. So they're downloading the app on their phone. They're using it more than once. They're seeing which food they like, from a takeout or delivery standpoint. Some people are just fundamentally starting to learn. Like, we're all big into the retail technology sector, the restaurant technology sector. Some people are finally saying, oh, I thought pizza was the only place that delivered. Other restaurants do it, right? Some people are just starting to learn that now, and they're going to keep that going forward. So consumer was one hurdle. The restaurants were another one. Like Jeremy said, you try to say, hey, adopt this technology, adopt online ordering. And they're either like, I'm too busy or I don't have the money, right? And sorry to use a cliche, but necessity is the mother of invention. And so since they're not busy and the only way they can get money is from online, they're suddenly moving forward into this. And so now that there's the availability, like Jeremy said before, even if you wanted to order online, their website didn't have it, or they weren't able to accept it. So, solution providers we've talked to, they feel, just from a general standpoint, 2020 might be shot. It's never going to get back to where it was at the start, but they see afterwards there's going to be a rebirth with more technology, and that's going to make online ordering as standard as having a receipt printer, right, when you have a point of sale installation. And again, back to the consumer, I mean, some people just want to keep their sweatpants on, right? Like, I don't want to get dressed up in order to go out to eat. Like, I want the food, but I don't want to have to go through all that. And now that they've been doing that for 2 months, they're going to do that, and the consumer is really in control at this standpoint. So I think that combination of the restaurants finally adopting it out of necessity, and then the consumer being in control and building up the habit, I think you're definitely going to see more of this going forward, not just in 2021, but beyond. I think that online ordering has had a permanent uptick to a certain degree.
The only other thing that I'll add to that, and really well said, but I think something that we've noticed is that the big ordering demographic prior to this whole situation was 18 to 34-year-old target audience. And that has really expanded over the last couple of months as kids are showing their parents and grandparents how to use these ordering platforms, and they're becoming power users. My grandpa is now, he has the Dash Pass and orders his Subway sandwiches every day for lunch. And that's not going away even after this is done. Especially, there were a couple weeks here in LA where the mayor put out this notice: if you're above a certain age, don't go out at all in the next week if you can. That was, I feel like, a big week for a lot of people to really have to be forced to turn to apps like this. And now that they know how to use it, their credit card stored, their location, their preferences, their order history is all set up. It's really easy for them to reorder. And even when things open back up, there's going to be a huge group of people who are skeptical to go out. And there's going to be a lot of people who have adjusted to the new normal, to your point.
Definitely. I think it's interesting too, because you're going to start to see apps probably become a little stickier as, maybe the older generations that aren't as well versed with technology download a platform, and that's their one platform. They're going to be stuck on that one platform, whereas younger generations might have multiple different platforms. So we might see some changes in the stickiness of these apps too, which is kind of interesting. Alex, my next question is for you. What are some of the creative ways that restaurants have started to put customers at ease who might be wary of ordering delivery right now? What are some of the ways that they're making things feel safer?
Yeah, well, it's not just the restaurants who are doing that. It's like really the safety regulations that are being mandated from local governments and state policies. But basically, the rules have gotten so much more strict in terms of what it takes to stay open. The employees need to be wearing masks now, standing 6 feet apart from each other, washing their hands, group washes every 20 minutes, a half hour, and then only allowing a few people in at a time. I know a lot of restaurants are only allowing one person in, and until that person leaves, they won't allow a new person to come in. But really, on the delivery side, I would say a lot more tamper-proof stickers. So that there's no interference happening in the food delivery itself. And this is outside of what the restaurants are doing, but all the third-party apps have now implemented contactless drop-off, which has really added another level of safety from the actual handoff of the food package to the end user, leaving it at their door. So all of the information out there is solidifying the fact that ordering delivery through these apps and through these restaurants is safe. In fact, it was encouraged over going to the grocery store, which is putting yourself at risk, especially if you're in that older generation that's more at risk. So overall, there's good information backing up the fact that it is safe to order delivered.
Definitely. I know I've personally been a big contributor to the online ordering industry right now. We did a lot of cooking, but now we're ordering a whole lot. Jeremy, my next question is for you. What do you think is the most important piece of technology to have in place right now for restaurant staff?
So this was a tough one because I as I read the question, I think there's the fundamentals of having a transaction system, a point of sale system that you can capture your sales, and having a point of sale system that's open to be able to innovate. The amount of innovation that restaurants have gone through in this last 8 weeks rivals not only any time in my 25 years in the industry, but I think ever. The amount of change that they've seen over the last 8 weeks has been nothing short of remarkable. And so having a point of sale system and kind of the core piece of your technology to interact with is hugely beneficial. And having a partnership with your provider to ask those questions and say, how can I do the things that Jim would talk about to help make things safe, make them easier for my consumers, make them easier for my guests. And so that's one. And the part of why you need that, and as I talk with operators, one of the biggest things that they're struggling with, and Alex, I'm sure you guys are seeing this at the restaurant, is the volumes have changed from day to day. Whereas normally everything used to be a Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday would get killed. Now it's a Tuesday night that's your busiest night. And so how do you staff for that? How do you prepare for that? How do you do food prep for that? And so without the transactional data to know that as time goes on, and as we start to get back to whatever this new situation is, whether it's 25%, 50%, 75% dining in, without that transactional data to know what it looks like, it gets almost impossible to predict what your staffing levels need to look like, what your food preparation needs to look like, how many bags do you guys need to even package food, and what does that need to look like? And so there's so much of that. And so I know it's a boring cliche type answer, but I think having an integrated point of sale solution that allows you to see that transactional data and get to it and interact with it is paramount today, because that allows you to add on the labor management systems and the delivery systems and the third-party integrations and all of those different things that we've been talking about thus far.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Jim, my next question is for you. If owners and, let me see here, if owners and operators wanted more education and advice on how to manage their staff through these trying times, does RSPA offer any current resources?
They do. And before I answer that, just a warning to Jeremy, like, don't step on my toes. I'm here to bring the boring cliche answers. All right. That's my market. So stay off my boring turf. Good question. So the RSPA, again, caters to the technology solution providers. We're not necessarily an end user organization, a merchant organization, but some of the resources that we did create that can help merchants as well. We have one that's called RSPA Restaurant Rescue. If you just Google that, don't do it right now because then you'll close our screen here. But RSPA Restaurant Rescue, we have over 40 tech providers who are helping folks get through this crisis, whether it's online ordering or whether it's other technology solutions, a lot that Jeremy and Alex have touched on already. Ordermark is on that list as well. We also have on the website something we put together called the RSPA Guide to Small Business Resources for Merchants. And a lot of our technology solution providers have put that on their website so they can push that out to their merchants. There's an entire section there on health and safety, a lot of the CDC guidelines, a lot of what technology vendors are recommending as well. So that's a good guideline. And then the biggest thing is we're the largest collection of technology providers in North America, right? These can be your trusted advisors. So if you want to find somebody in your area or in your vertical, you can just email membership@gorspa.org, and we'd be happy to connect you with the right person or the right people to help meet your needs. So again, if any merchant ever wants to reach out to us, membership@gorspa.org, happy to make a connection for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Greatly appreciated. So now I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about, we've been talking about this a bit, but payments and contactless payments and the technology that surrounds this all. So Jeremy, I'd like to pose a question to you first. Some of the most innovative changes coming out of COVID-19 are the ways in which payments are made between customers and owners or operators. Many places are veering away from using cash altogether. Do you think these changes are here to stay? Is cash going to be something that is a thing of the past?
I don't know that anybody can predict for sure. Ironically, there's somebody that's up in your guys' neck of the woods that was cashless. The guys at Sweetgreen, they were completely cashless, and then they got sued in certain regions because they were discriminating against a certain portion of the population that didn't have credit cards. And so I think only time will tell for certain, but I unequivocally think that the transition has been happening for quite some time, and I think it's only going to continue. I actually personally think that we'll get away from even having a credit card and it'll be on your mobile device. I think, to me, the future looks like when I come into Cantor's to have lunch, I'm going to load up my phone, and that most likely will be how I order, and that also will most likely be how I pay for my meal. We've got many of our clients that have already done it, and I foresee that being the way of the future, because now I don't have to interact, taking a paper menu, going back and forth. I foresee that being a more and more prevalent way to do it, especially in casual dining or sit-down dining, any kind of sit-down dining experience. And quite frankly, I think as fast food and fast casual start to see that adoption curve, they do serve a different demographic oftentimes, but even there, a very large percentage of the U.S. population has a mobile phone. And if you travel overseas, especially to certain parts of Africa, they all pay, in certain parts of Asia, they all only pay with their mobile phone. Almost none of them carry around a credit card. And so I think cash is going to go away, and the payment infrastructure is still going to be the backing for that mobile payment, but I think it's all going to go to your mobile device that you have to be able to pay for things. So I guess that's my prediction, and you heard it here first.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to this and see if it all pans out. I think it's really interesting, and technology, obviously, it moves at such a rapid pace. Who knows what we're going to see in the next 6 months, but thank you for that. Jim, my next question is for you. In what ways are you seeing digital payments start to change? What technological advances are supporting a cashless restaurant experience?
Yeah, good question. So it seems like the technology providers, the creators of the technology, have been trying to push the end users, the consumers, to have adoption for it, but they've really had to getting a lot of resistance because people are like, "Man, I'm okay, with my cash for, the most part, or I'll just use this credit card, like no big deal, right?" But now, because of this pandemic that we've been hearing about day after day after day, folks are genuinely scared, and that fear is going to carry on for a long time. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Contagion, right? And so it's about a pandemic. And so if you watch that movie for 2 hours, you like won't touch a doorknob for a week afterwards because you see that movie, you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm nervous about doing that. Well, think again, that was 2 hours. 2 months of this day after day after day, there's going to be a fear. And so now I think we're going to see, again, the consumers are in control. They're going to want to do more things. And so how are the restaurateurs going to meet them? Again, through technology. We're seeing antimicrobial covers that are on terminals and making it loud that, hey, these things, don't collect germs. We're seeing contactless, right? More of the payments as opposed to just the credit card, as Jeremy talked about, things that can be more on the phone. I talked to a guy who's a lifelong credit card guy out in the Rocky area, and he was like, I don't even want to touch a credit card at this point, right? Like he's afraid to do it. You're afraid to hand anything or put it in that slot where who knows who else has been there. I also think that online ordering is going to be a big gateway in terms of folks who didn't do as much payments before, but if they're ordering online, it's going to require them that they can't, shove cash into their computer, or you can't order and then pay with cash later. That's going to be rare. And then, like Jeremy said, we're seeing a lot of pay at the table as well that goes through your phone. And I'm just like Jeremy. I don't think cash is going to go away, from the regulation standpoint in part, and it's convenient. And so the pendulum's not going to swing all the way that there's no more cash, but I think it's going to swing to a certain degree, and it's not going back as far as it did before. So if we were slowly crawling towards less cash and more digital payments, now the pace has picked up a little bit because of this pandemic.
Awesome, thank you. Jeremy, another question for you. Online ordering platforms give restaurants a way to reach more and more customers, but many restaurant owners and operators are wary of the cost. What is your advice to these restaurants that might be fearful of the delivery fees?
I think before you enter into that arrangement, I think you need to do an evaluation of your restaurant offering to say, does the food that I have, does the food that I sell, should I sell everything online before you jump into that world? And I think, I'll have a podcast that I'll release next week that kind of is the things that people need to consider before they jump into that world, because I think, pricing models, food travel models, why has pizza been so successful? Because it's easy to make, it's a relatively high margin item, and it travels well. And so those are three contributing factors. Chinese food, somewhat similarly, is, kind of the second, highest delivery prior to this whole thing. And so is, what's going to sell? I think people need to evaluate that. And how are they going to make money if they've got a 20 or 25 or 30% tack on top of it from the third party vendors? And is the guest going to enjoy it? I was on the phone with somebody this morning, and we were talking about it. Is somebody going to come in and buy a prime rib dinner, on a Tuesday night and have it come to them? I think the chances are relatively small, but might they order a prime rib sandwich? And can I tack on an extra $1 or $2 onto the prime, shaved prime rib sandwich? And so, as you start to look at those third party delivery options, just because you offered it for dine in doesn't necessarily mean you should, or you could offer it, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so I would take that as something that a lot of restaurateurs need to evaluate it. And then the other piece that I saw a local Mediterranean place out of San Diego did, we ordered takeout from them the other day, and they did a phenomenal job of packaging, because they took their hot food and put it in the hot food section. Their cold food, it was like a Euro salad. The salad was in a cold section. The meat was on top, and it was as good as if I would have gone in there. Whereas if they would have put the gyro on top of the salad prior to it getting delivered to me, it would have been a terrible experience, because the lettuce would have been wilty. And so those are non-tech things. But I think as you start to evaluate whether you want to go into third-party delivery or your own online ordering, you need to take a step back and say, what food is going to sell? what food is going to travel well, what food is going to allow my brand to represent itself once it gets out there before you put those things on the menu, because consumers have choice. Jim keeps talking about it. The consumers, you only get that first chance, the one chance to make the first impression. And so if that's the first time that they're ordering from you and their meal is terrible because you offered them lobster tail that, was 45 minutes delayed getting to you, it's not going to taste good. And so how is that going to translate when you get to that place? And so those are some of the things that I recommend to our restaurant operators when we're talking with them that they do or don't do.
It's awesome. I think that's the whole thing, is online ordering can be an experience in the home for somebody. And if they place an online order from you and that first online order isn't everything that they hope it's going to be, you've lost a customer. They're not coming back to you. And that's, a big factor to take into consideration. Alex, I wanted to pose pretty much the same question to you. What are some of the benefits of joining these online ordering platforms?
Yeah, well, Jeremy, you pretty much nailed it in terms of menu and delivery and all that stuff. I'll focus my answer more on pricing and profitability, because I think it is an important topic to really digest and dive into. And prior to about a year ago, the online ordering companies were mandating that in their contracts you had to price your menu the same way that it was priced in the restaurant. But today they've actually made a lot of changes to that to be more flexible and allow restaurants to tack on an extra 10, 15% on top of their Uber Eats menu, so that you can make up for that 30% take rate that they're scooping up. And I think a lot of restaurants who've been approached over the last couple of years still have this bad taste in their mouth, like I can't give away 30% and make money. But the reality is that consumers are willing to spend a little bit more to pay for convenience, and if you do inflate these prices, you're still going to get a ton of volume. And the big thing is that these third-party apps are really a marketing agency for you. A lot of mom and pop restaurants don't have marketing budgets, and simply by being listed and existing on these online ordering platforms, you now are visible and have a chance to be ordered from. And by existing, you're now capturing daily orders from each of these platforms of the millions of users who use them. So I know a lot of people don't really think about it as a marketing fee, but that's really what it is. They're putting your restaurant in front of a bunch of hungry users that can now order from you. The last thing is, if you're a restaurant that was already operating and you have a dine-in business, there's a lot of fixed costs like rent. The staff is already there, the lights are already on. So adding these third-party marketplaces is truly incremental revenue. You're adding on top of the orders that you're already receiving in your restaurant. And therefore, you have food costs, which could be upwards of 30%. You have the online ordering take rate, which could be another 30%. And that last chunk of revenue, if you don't have to hire any new people, it's pretty profitable still. A lot of people, it's hard to understand that when you look at it individually, but if you're layering in delivery to your already brick and mortar business, you have to think about it in that way, because it is adding in extra orders for sure. I think it's 84% incremental orders when you're layering in third-party delivery, and that was prior to COVID-19. That may be shifting coming out of this, but even so, just being listed on these apps, you're now eligible to receive those orders. So it's an important thing to keep in mind.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Alex. I apologize. My camera, I think, is getting a little messed up. I'm not seeing Jim or Alex, but I can still hear you, I think. So my next question is for you, Jim. For those owners and operators that may have a legacy or older POS system and they don't feel like they could easily turn on online ordering, what advice would you give to them?
I got it. So I'm old enough that I can remember folks were saying in the 1980s, it's the 80s, like get with the times. And then they said the same thing in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. And so now it's, hey, welcome to 2020, right? This is what you need to do. And even if you think it's impossible, you've got to do the research and find out how can you make it happen. Not if, but how can you make it happen? Because you have to meet your customers where they are, and where your customers are is here, right? It's on their phone. And so if you don't have the ability for your customers, and not actually them dialing the phone, because a lot of people don't do that anymore, but making the order from there, you're going to miss out on a big part of your target audience and your potential audience. And it can't just be your personal preferences. You can't say, well, I don't order food that way, I don't behave that way. It's that big audience that you're looking for. And again, said it multiple times, the consumers are really in control. And so if you don't know what direction to go, call your POS solution provider, because they can help you navigate in terms of what the landscape is like. We've seen, and I know Jeremy and I have talked about this before, the core POS technology, the price of that has declined, right? So if you have a legacy system that's out of date and can't do it, to get a new system is not 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000. It's way less than what it used to be before. There's also options of paying monthly. A lot of these things are closer to plug and play than they are some massive overhaul and installation. Again, it depends on how big your restaurant is, but call that solution provider, have them help you navigate it. You don't have to figure this stuff out on your own. It's not you and Google, doing this search term. You can lean on folks who really know the technology, and they can guide you and show you how you can pivot in order to make online ordering and these new technologies part of your business.
No is not the right answer. There's always a way.
Correct. Always a way.
Alex, when it comes to setting up a delivery business, how quickly can this be implemented in a restaurant? And how challenging is it to roll out to multiple locations if you're more than just a single store?
Yeah, so it's actually a fairly fast process. From sign up to go live on these online ordering services is a matter of weeks. Right now, they all happen to be a little bit more backed up than usual, just because of the over demand that's happening. I think Grubhub said in a press release that they're getting 10 times the amount of signups than they normally would, which just goes to show how many restaurants are just scrambling to put together a delivery program right now. But it comes down to menu, pictures, pricing. And once you set it up on one location, you can actually just replicate the menu for multiple locations. If you have different pricing or different menu offerings from location to location, it's very easy to make those adjustments as well. So it's a fairly fast process. Some of the platforms move a little bit faster than others, but to go live, it's less than a month.
Awesome. Thank you. Jeremy, for restaurants that have recently added delivery to their model, what should they prepare for in terms of staff training or necessary equipment, things like that?
So some of the things that we've seen people do, because it is a different order flow, is certain pieces of technology. We've seen a lot of people consider label printing to label the orders as they're going out the door, having staging areas for those delivery or those takeout orders to where we know what the orders are. They've implemented checklists because nobody wants that impression to be bad that all four of us ordered a meal and only three of us got it. So that checklist that says when they're in the dining room and you forget a sandwich, you can always just go back to the kitchen, either have it remade or you can go grab it out of the pass-through window. You're not going to be able to do that when you're delivering it to somebody's home. And so, or, giving it to an Uber Eats driver. And so, but back to the contactless thing, we've had a lot of people that have implemented that label printing solution, because now you don't have to open it up and go, who's the one that had the turkey, the turkey sandwich with no mayonnaise, and they're opening and they're trying to pull, like, how do you know that that's Jim's sandwich versus Macy's sandwich versus my salad versus Alex's salad? Having that label on the outside of the box is one of those like to adds or nice to haves that people are implementing. The other piece, and we talked a little bit about it, is a safe way for those delivery drivers to come in and pick up the food. Prior to COVID, it was the places that were busy with DoorDash. I would go in to pick up my own food on my way home from work or whatever, and there might be 4 or 5 or 6 delivery drivers sitting in the lobby waiting for their food. Is it mine? Is it not mine? So the operational process of determining whose order is this, checking them in, checking them out to know that the right delivery driver picked up the right food is another operational process that I think all restaurateurs, as they implement these types of solutions, have to consider.
Yeah, something to consider before you get started so that there's no upset customers. Get that flow in order and keep things organized. Alrighty, so I wanted to talk a little bit about technology. We have obviously been touching a lot on technology, but I do have a few more questions. So Jeremy, back to you. Hindsight is always 2020. And when we look back, what piece of technology do you think could have really helped restaurants during this time had they had it in place before COVID hit?
Well, and this is going to be a shameless plug for you guys, but a solution like Watermark that allows you to pull orders in and to onboard these different platforms, and having the ability to onboard these platforms easily and quickly and get them through to your standard systems. And I'm not saying it because you guys are you guys invited me to come talk on this podcast, but it's the truth. It is 100% the truth that you have to have that online presence, because so many guests are ordering from their mobile device or ordering from their tablet or ordering from their PC. And without having that, you lose out on a significant portion of the population that is not going to call your restaurant to order. So that'd probably be the biggest one that people are kicking themselves in the backside that they didn't implement it 8, 10, 12 weeks ago prior to this thing hitting. Because if they had it, they would have been able to be online and be able to serve those customers that were coming into the restaurant in February and early March prior to the stay-at-home orders. And so it's a shameless plug for you guys, and thank you guys for having me on. But at the same time, it is 100% the truth that the biggest piece that I found when talking to our clients that they don't have, and the ones that are some of the most successful, have found that the ones that have it already in place. Domino's and Wingstop, their sales are up significantly, and they're killing it because they were digital first companies that then transitioned. And so their stock and their sales are through the roof, whereas those people that didn't have it are dying.
Well, thank you for that. We do appreciate it. Jim, question for you. What is something that restaurants should prioritize putting into place in terms of technology now to prevent future issues, or to help restaurants prepare for the possible winter outbreak that we've been hearing chatter about?
Yeah, so I'll build on what Jeremy said. Like, the online ordering is the core of all that, but what you have to do also around that is, and almost if there's a restaurateur listening to this who doesn't have online ordering or is late to adopt it, imagine if you're able to go back and not only have online ordering, but have a website that serves as your front door to your business. If someone looks at it, it's easy to navigate, it's very attractive, people feel comfortable using it, it's like a trusted site. And then what if you did social media promotion as well on Facebook? And so people knew that you did delivery. People knew you had online ordering, right? If you had done that back then you would be a default restaurant for somebody to go to, as opposed to, well, I guess I'll try them for ordering out. They're new at this, so we'll see how it goes, right? If you build up that confidence in the consumer's mind, and you're going to do that over time, and you would have done that over time, start now. If you didn't do it before, start now. Get that online ordering, the website, the social media. And again, if you're thinking right now, how can I do this all on my own? I run a restaurant. I don't do all this stuff. Again, lean on somebody like a Jeremy Julian, a CBS North Star, a trusted advisor to help you keep you up to date with all the technologies and really take care of a lot of those technologies and services for you. Just like it helped folks to get the PPP loans, to have a good relationship with their bank. Start now and get a good relationship with an IT provider. It's going to pay dividends for you down the road.
Definitely. Get your restaurant a TikTok. Social media is the future.
Yes.
We've been seeing a lot of, I've been seeing a lot of Chipotle and some other companies getting on TikTok and driving orders that way. Just innovative ways to drive orders right now. Alex, can you explain what Watermark does to support delivery in restaurants? I know that Jeremy hit nicely on that, but can you give me an overview?
Sure, yeah. So we basically give restaurants the ability to take orders from all of the online ordering companies that are available and relevant in a given zip code by streamlining and standardizing all the incoming orders into a single flow. We have an option to give restaurants a single tablet and printer that can aggregate all these orders directly into the kitchen. And we also have the ability to map all of these online orders that are coming in from all the various ordering streams into a restaurant's point of sale system if they're using one of our POS partners. And really the important thing about that right now is that restaurants need all the volume that they can get as they're trying to sustain revenues to keep their doors open. So we've got a product called Order Mark Reach that really is important for restaurants to understand what's available in their zip code. Sometimes there's the big national players that everyone knows, but in many markets, there's a bunch of localized players or genre-specific ordering platforms like Slice, that's just for pizza restaurants. And each one of those platforms is going to bring incremental volume. Some of them are going to be more than others, but it's really important to be on all of them right now. And that's really what we're enabling these restaurants to do.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a couple more questions. Just wanted to open this up to the audience. If you do have questions, feel free to start asking them. We will open it up here in just a couple minutes. Jeremy, back to you. The Restaurant Technology Guys podcast recently did an episode on using data to drive customer engagement. Now more than ever before, customer engagement can help keep a restaurant alive. What were some of the key takeaways from that?
I start by knowing who your customers are. Like, that's one of the biggest things that restaurants don't know is who their customers are. And then what are they looking for? Make your engagement not just about, let me throw out these offers. And I talk about this often, and Jim and I have talked offline about kind of offer value to your customers. It's not always just about free delivery, because you just beat them to death. What are some unique ways that you can engage with those clients? Alex mentioned it earlier, groceries, and this is a COVID statement, but even post-COVID, it's groceries, it's exclusive items, it's the ability to get into the kitchen with the founders, it's the ability to have a cooking class with these things. People have gotten so innovative. You've seen Disneyland, release their Dole Whip recipe and their DoubleTree, their chocolate chip cookie recipe. Cheesecake Factory is doing an online cooking class next week where you can join an online cooking class with their executive chefs. But now, how do I now engage with those customers to figure out what they're looking for, measure the success, and then drive it? The only way you can do that is to have a system in place to understand who those customers are. And so both in the podcast and just in life, knowing who those customers are so that you can speak to their language. You mentioned the TikTok example. Is TikTok where your clients are hanging out? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Where are those places where your customers are hanging out, and how do you engage with them? Brian Nichols, the CEO of Chipotle, he's young. He's trying to get into that younger demographic. And so he's going to go figure out how do I meet those people where they are? He focused 2 years ago on digital first. And, he came out and said in a press release, we could last 2 years with this current environment and not have to close a store because we transitioned to digital first, 2 years ago. And so these are just some examples of people around that know who their customers are, know how to talk to them, offer them relevant information that's not just about free delivery or just a free side of guacamole, but it's these other ways that they're able to talk to them and engage with them. And I'm sure you as a marketer, this is just music to your ears, understanding who those people are and how to talk to them.
Absolutely. I know that when I place an order online and it comes to my house, if there's something special about it or Instagrammable or anything like that, it's just going to change the entire experience. It's going to make me want to order from that place again, 110%. I'm going to jump ahead because we are getting closer to this time. So Jim, I know that you already touched on some of the resources that RSPA offers, but can you, for anybody who might be joining late or for anybody who will miss the beginning of this, can you give us an overview? What are some of the resources that I can get from RSPA?
Sure. So the RSPA stands for the Retail Solution Providers Association, mainly based in North America. So that's mostly, United States and Canada. We have solution providers, software developers, technology resellers. And so that is really the core value that we offer, is that community and access to that community. And again, if you want to reach any of those solution providers, you just email us at membership at gorspa.org. We also have, you can just Google RSPA Restaurant Rescue in order to see what technology providers are helping folks cope during this COVID-19 crisis. And we also have guides on there that give a lot of specifics in terms of health and safety, both in general for running a business, and then also how to take care of technology. Those are kind of the fundamentals right now that it seems like restaurants need in order to cope with this and be prepared down the road, because like you alluded to, there's a chance that this could come back to some degree, and so we've got to be ready for that.
Great. And after we wrap up here, I am going to send out a follow-up email with some links to the podcast, the different websites, the resources. So make sure you check your inbox for those. 2 more questions. Jeremy, I'll start with yours. If I wanted more information about Custom Business Solutions or the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast, where can I go?
We've got 2 websites. cbsnorthstar.com is kind of our traditional solution providers business that Jim talked about. We do all things restaurant technology, from kitchen management systems to point of sale to credit card processing to mobile payments to recipe management and the like. And we focus only on the restaurant vertical, which has been a little bit challenging over the last 8 weeks, but that's really where our niche has been over the last 25 years. And then restauranttechnologyguys.com is where we host a blog and podcast. Couple of podcasts go up a month, couple of blog posts go up a month, and it's really a place there's a contact me page up there if you want to get in contact with me, listen to me babble about one thing or another about the restaurant technology industry.
Awesome. You said there's a new episode coming out next week?
Yeah, it's actually queued up to go, I think, out Monday or Tuesday morning. I don't remember which day I picked, but because of COVID, I've got more both podcasts recorded and more able to put out there. And so I'm trying not to blast people too often, but at the same time, get some timely and relevant stuff. And that one's really about innovative ways. Shameless plug for that one. It's about innovative ways that me and another restaurant guy have seen restaurants adapting and adopting the solutions that are out there, whether it's third-party delivery or curbside payment, or taking mobile POS and building a drive-through. We have one of our customers that built a drive-through with some pop-up tents every day. They took their mobile POS outside and built a drive-through. It's a restaurant that didn't need drive-through, and they figured out a way in their parking lot to build a drive-through. And those are just some unique ways that we've seen some people cope with the situation. So it was a cool podcast to do. So hopefully you guys get a chance to listen and give me some feedback.
We'll definitely be listening. That's super great. I'm sure restaurant owners right now more than ever before need these helpful resources. They need this guidance. So lastly, Alex, if I wanted to go ahead and get started with Ordermark, how do I do that?
It's pretty similar. You can go to ordermark.com, put in your information, and someone will get back to you pretty quickly. You can also email us or email me personally. You could email alex@ordermark.com, and I'll get you connected.
You can also contact us at info@ordermark.com. And like I said, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with some links to everything. If you have any questions, feel free to respond directly back. That'll go to my inbox, and I'll reach back out to you. Thank you so much, Jim, Jeremy, Alex. I appreciate your time today. This was super informative, and thank you for all your guidance during this incredibly challenging time.
Thank you.
you.
Good discussion. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. So I don't see any questions. We're going to go ahead and wrap up here. I'll send up that follow-up email. If you do have questions, feel free to just respond directly back to us. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.